Okay, today we're going to continue on with our next lesson of solving equations, but this time we're still going to be isolating the variable, but we are going to be doing the inverse operation using our multiplying and dividing. So again, just like before, I absolutely need to see that work. So showing me every step. Again, when you have an equation, and again, equation means you have an equal sign and you have a variable, then your job is to isolate that variable, to get that variable by itself. And you can see with this problem A, h is our variable. So we need to get that h all by itself, which means I've got to get rid of this negative 27 that's on the same side. The only way to get rid of that negative 27 is to do the inverse operation. Now, when we're doing that inverse operation, when we add or subtract, we're trying to get a zero pair. There is no such thing as a zero pair when you're multiplying or dividing. So our inverse operation, if you look at this problem, it says h divided by negative 27. That is what this fraction, excuse me, I'm forgetting the words of it. That's what this fraction is actually saying. A fraction is a division problem. So h divided by negative 27, well, what is the opposite of dividing? The opposite of dividing is multiplying. So I need to multiply both sides by what I'm trying to get rid of, which isn't just 27, it's negative 27. And you will see that I did not create a zero pair. Negative 27 divided by negative 27 is not 0. It's actually a giant 1. And that 1 times h, is just h. But we have to be very careful. Remember, we said that equal sign was a nice even balance. We have to do that inverse operation on both sides. It cannot be on one side, it has to be on both sides in order to keep the equation equal or balanced. So if I put a times negative 27 on the left, I have to multiply by negative 27 on the right. So now I've got h is equal to, what's a negative times a negative? Well, that's a positive. And that's positive 54. There is my answer. Now my variable is nice and isolated. Now we did go ahead and we simplified, and we'll look at that one more time in a second. But we need to check our work to make sure that we really got the correct answer. So we're going to go ahead and take that equation that we started with. But remember, we put parentheses instead of the variable. So parentheses divided by negative 27 equals negative 2. Now we're going to go ahead and take our solution, that 54, and put it on the inside. What is positive divided by a negative? That's a negative. 54 divided by 27 is 2. Does negative 2 actually equal negative 2? Yes, that is a true statement, so I know my 54 is a correct answer. So let's go ahead and look at B. Going through those steps again. I need to isolate my variable. Well, the variable I see right now is B. I need to get B completely by itself, which means I have to get rid of this negative 212. Well, right now, this problem says negative 212 times B. Well, what is the inverse operation, or what is the opposite of multiplying? The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide, not one side, both sides, by what I need to get rid of, which is that negative 212. So let's divide both sides by negative 212. Now we're going to simplify. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 212 divided by 212, well, that's a big, giant 1. So scary looking 1. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just cross that off and just say that becomes a nice big 1. And what's 1 times b? B. What's a negative divided by a negative? That's a positive. And 212 times what gives me that 424? 424 divided by 212 is a positive 2. Now let's go ahead and check my work to see if that really is a true statement. So again, taking what was there before, negative 212, times, and put parentheses, equals negative 424. Now we're going to go ahead and put our solution inside, which we said was 2. And now let's see if that really worked. A negative times a positive is a negative. 212 times 2 is 424. Does negative 424 equal negative 424? It sure does. We know we got a correct answer. Let's go ahead and look at that C. Y minus 25 equals negative 15. Again, I see an equal sign. If I see an equal sign in a variable, I have one job, and that is to isolate the variable. What's the variable? You're correct. It's y. What do I have to get rid of? What's on the same side? That minus 25. Now, I need to do the inverse operation, the opposite of what that green negative 25 is. What is the opposite of negative 25? Well, I'm hoping you would tell me positive 25. I wanted to do a review to see if you could catch that. I need to add 25, not to one side. We have to keep that balanced. We have to do it to both. Now that I've done that, let's simplify. Negative 25 plus 25, that's not a 1. That's what we call a 0 pair. That becomes a 0. So now I've got y equals negative 15 plus 25. Well, do I have more positives or more negatives? Correct. I have more positives, so it's going to be a positive answer. They are on opposite sides of the number line. I have one negative, one positive, which means I have to subtract, and I get 10. I believe my answer is y equals 10. Now, of course, could I check my answers? Yes, you can, and I want you to try to do that. But let's look at D. Looking again at that variable, what is the variable in this problem? That's right, A. I have to get rid of anything that is on the same side as that A. What's on the same side? This dividing by 6. Now remember, the only way to get rid of it is to do the inverse operation. What's the opposite of dividing by 6? Good. Multiplying by 6. So let's go ahead and multiply both sides by 6. Now we can go ahead and simplify. What is 6 divided by 6? I can cross it off and make 1, but I'm just showing you it's a giant 1. And 1 times A, well, that's just A. A negative times a positive, that's a negative. And 12 times 6 is 72. So I believe my answer is A is negative 72. We have one more problem to do, and that's E, but I want you to try to do this one on your own. Be careful, though, because right now I know I have to get that m isolated. Remember to think about the inverse operation, the opposite, to get rid of that 8. So bring your work with you into class, and we will do this one to see if you got it correct.